Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Music Tip Tuesday. So we're at the beginning of a new series of music tips. So that means that we're starting from the beginning. Last week we learned all about how to access our diaphragm to get good air quality and good sound. Today we're going to be talking about something very important. It is called posture. Posture is very, very important no matter what instrument you play because it affects how you play. Most of the students I teach right now are voice and flute, which is both air, right? Both instruments that need air. So we need to make sure that we have a straight line from our diaphragm, from our lungs, up through our neck and out. So we're getting as much air as possible. I also teach piano students. They have to sit up nice and tall with their wrists up and off the piano in order to move their fingers in a way where they can hit all the notes and they have the ability to move. So, without further ado, posture. Posture is really, really easy. I'm sitting, so we'll start sitting today. Let's pull the camera back. So, first thing you're going to notice, we're coming down. I am sitting up. All right, so let's turn this way. I am sitting up. Now, what that means is when I sit down, I'm sitting up nice and tall. I am not leaning forward. I'm not leaning to the side. I'm not leaning to the other side. I'm sitting up nice and tall. If you would, think of having a string right here. So if you touch the back of your neck, you probably can't see it, but if you touch the back of your neck, there's a bone, the top vertebra. It's a top vertebra. Anyways, pretend like there's a string from that vertebra going all the way to the ceiling, and it's holding you up. You should be up like this when you are either singing or playing or even playing the piano. We want to be nice and tall and up. The next thing we're going to do, let's talk about singing in woodwinds first, or in wind instruments first. You're going to want to have your shoulders back and your chin up. Why? That's an excellent question. Why should we have our shoulders back and our chin up when we're trying to sing or play a wind instrument? Well, two things. If your shoulders are forward, you're putting pressure right here on top of the upper part of the lungs, and you're actually restricting the amount of air you're going to be able to get out of those lungs. So even though you know how to use your diaphragm, there's not really anything in there to squeeze out. Next thing, the chin here, level, not down, not up, level to begin with, because again we want to get that nice flow of air. Think of the windpipe, if you will, or or the trachea as a hose almost, right? So if you have a hose, you turn on the water, you're spraying it, but if you kink it, the water pressure stops, and then you open it up again and it's fine. That's the same thing here. The trachea, again, the front pipe trachea, that's the one we use for air. So if you look too high or you lift your chin up too high, what you're doing, and you can even hear it in my talking voice, is you're putting pressure against the trachea. You're actually putting pressure against the vocal cords, which is no bueno. But you're putting pressure against that windpipe, which is actually restricting the amount of airflow, and it's going to make it harder for good sound. Now, there is an exception to the rule, and this is why. So imagine with me you could see inside. I know that's creepy, but inside the throat and actually see the windpipe. The windpipe it goes up, but it actually hooks, right? Zip. So that does mean that there are times where you can lower your head a little bit. In fact, that is a trick that I tend to teach singers if they're having a hard time and they feel like they need to move their chin, but they're moving it in a way that restricts the air. Dipping your chin a little bit is okay for singers. Dipping your chin a little bit is not okay for flute players or for some wind players, because we need to get that sound out and over the stands. So we'll talk about that in just a second. So let's go from here and do specifically singing. So specifically singing. So now that we have our back straight, our shoulders back, our chin is up or slightly down, but never up. We also need to do one more thing, and this unfortunately you can't see. Now I include this with posture because for me it makes the most sense to teach it with posture, and my students tend to understand it better. So there is two palates in your mouth. There's a hard palate. I know you can't hear that. And a soft palate. The hard palate is the part of your mouth that cannot move. It's hard. thus hard palate. I know, amazing. The part in the back of your throat, however, that lifts up and down, that's called your soft palate. You use it a lot when you eat. Like, let's say you eat something very hot, but you don't want to spit it out because it tastes really good. Well, you use the muscles to lift the soft palate so you don't burn yourself. When you're singing or playing a wind instrument, you want to lift that soft palate. That way the air has a straight shot up through the lungs, up the trachea, and out the mouth. Right? So that's why no restrictions. The best airflow is one that is not restricted. All right, let's talk about instrumentalists. So obviously, as I mentioned before, I play flute. I teach flute. I play the euphonium. Haven't in a few years. It's an expensive instrument. There you go. So flute players, for good posture, you're now going to have to do this with your arms. So you're holding your flute at a 90-degree angle. So if I turn this way, you'll see that, if you can imagine, a straight line. Actually, look at this. We have a wooden spoon. How lovely. So this is how you would hold the flute, nice and straight. You never want to go this way. If you go too far this way, remember, that breaks the first rule. We're not sitting up straight. We're also putting the tone hole for that instrument in the wrong spot, which again restricts the airflow. So you're learning music, a lot of wind music is all about air and how you use it. Anyway, so back to that. So we don't want to go like this. We also don't want to dip this way. Same problem, right? So that is how you would do it if you're a flute player. Let's say you're a trumpet player or a euphonium player. I'm going to specifically use the idea of a marching euphonium. Reason being because that's going to be more common for trumpet and brass players in general to hold it up as opposed to hold it down. So you're playing, usually, actually fist is better than that. You're playing like this, you have to kind of lift the instrument up. So you do lift your chin a little bit. Now you don't play like this. That is way too much space. You can play like this sometimes. That tends to be more if you're in a jazz band and you're trying to aim the sound. But what you're really trying to do, if you can imagine this hand that you can't see my face, it's covering everything, this one is a music stand. So your instrument has to either point somewhere where you can get the sound past it underneath or above, which means you have to sit up straight, shoulders back, and put your instrument where it belongs. So there we go. So that's how you would do it if you were a wind player. Let's move on to if you're a piano player. So, piano player doesn't need to worry about the wind, right? We don't need as much air as we are playing the piano, although you do need to breathe, but that's a tip for another day. A day where we specifically talk about piano. What you need to do as a piano player is you have to, again, sit up nice and straight with those shoulders back, chin forward so you can actually see your music. You should use music. Again, tip for a different day. And then you're going to bring your arms up. Whoop, let's turn this, you can see. That's my lovely fryer. We're going to ignore the fryer though because we need the countertop space. We're going to put our fingers up like this. Not like this. Not like this. Definitely not like this. Woo! See? You do that, things go flying. So we're going to lift our hands up on our wrists so that we have the ability to move. So I'm just going to use the one hand. So do-do-do-do-do-do. I know, it's weird to see that. But the reason being is if you are slouching, your wrists are going to touch. And if your wrists are touching the piano, the fact of the matter is you're just not going to be able to access the notes you need to access quickly enough. You're going to... Actually, you could hurt yourself too, believe it or not. Your muscles in your hand aren't as big as some of the other muscles in your body. So if your hand is here and you're straining over there, you're going to hurt all in here. So posture is actually really, really important. So let's go over it again really quickly. For us to have good posture as a singer or instrumentalist, you need to, while you're sitting down, sit up nice and tall, pretend that there's that string holding you up to the ceiling. Put those shoulders back and lift the chin up. All right. Well, that is posture for today. I hope you all have a great day, and I will see you next week for the next Music Tip Tuesday. Bye.